And we're live. Hey, good morning. Happy Monday. It is 8:30 a.m. on the East Coast. I am Jack Gately. Thanks so much for joining us. Yeah, what a great weekend it was. The New England Patriots, they're awful, but it was kind of entertaining to see them lose so poorly. It is 3 weeks to Christmas. Can you believe it? 3 weeks to Santa. 3 weeks to Santa. Thank you so much for joining us. We're back again at 8:30. I think we did a show at 8:30. What was that, on Friday? Yeah, so I don't want to say it's officially back, but yeah, more or less will be. I'm going to try to do as many 8:30 shows as I do. I missed it when I didn't do it for 3 or 4 days. All right, so that's no promise that we'll be back tomorrow at 8:30, but we'll do a couple of this week for sure. All right, so I hope that you're on the good list, because apparently NAR is on the naughty list. NAR might be on the naughty list, according to the Department of Justice. We have news from late last week that the Department of Justice is seeking to reopen the case that it had closed, with quotations marks, in 2020. So as you might remember, during the Trump administration, and generally speaking, the Trump administration has been easier on the industry than the Biden administration, the Biden Department of Justice. So in 2020, they closed this case against NAR. Now, the Department of Justice is back, according to Real Estate News, trying to reopen the case against NAR. And this is a really interesting circumstance, because it shows, and I didn't want to do politics here on this show. I try to stay away from that, but it actually shows a little bit. It actually shows how eager the Department of Justice is, and they're looking at the calendar. And of course, we're less than a year from the presidential election, and the current candidates seem to be Biden and Trump. So the Department of Justice might see the clock being run out from their perspective if they don't win, right? If they don't win. So it's also possible that those two people are not the nominees for next year. Who knows what happens in 2024 from the presidential election? I mean, that's a ways away. I know it's only 11 months, but it's still like a world away in terms of what can happen for the various events. So I think this shows that the Department of Justice is like, okay, this is our chance. Who knows what's going to happen with the election? This is our chance. And we want to reopen this case and make our mark on this industry. It also might be an indication. Again, I'm not a lawyer, too smart to go to law school. Get your legal advice someplace else. This isn't legal advice, and this isn't financial, all that, disclaimer stuff. It might also be an indication that maybe they're not going to get the ruling that they had wanted out of the judge in Kansas City. So as we know, according to Michael Ketchmark, the attorney for the plaintiffs, Ketchmark had been in discussions with the Department of Justice before, during, and after the trial over there in Kansas City. And now we have the Department of Justice trying to officially reopen this case. Maybe, I'm just speculating here, no expert, but maybe because they're saying, rather than get some new case opened, which they probably could do, if they could reopen this case, then maybe that fast tracks some type of regulatory action that they might want to take, rather than having to go through and open up a completely new case. I'm just speculating here. You tell me if you have any experts on that. By the way, I'd love your comments. If you want to type in a comment here, I'd be really happy to hear about it. But that does indicate to me that the Department of Justice is going to try to expedite things as best they can, given the uncertainty of what might happen in late 2024. In the meantime, over in Seattle, a Codwell Banker dealership agency in Seattle with 300 agents has now opted out of NAR. So I believe they're part of the Northwest MLS. And if I'm not mistaken, again, someone could fact check me on this. Northwest MLS is independently owned and operated. It's not part of the National Association or any of its subsidiaries. Therefore, you can be an agent out there and get an MLS account without having to be a realtor, just like you can here in Massachusetts, thank God. So as you know, I'm not a realtor because I can join MLS PIN without a realtor membership because MLS PIN is independently owned and operated. Seattle-based Caldwell Banker franchise ditches NAR. The company is the latest of several to step away from NAR, which has suffered both scandal and legal defeats in recent months. Well, I guess that's a polite way to say it. So this is Caldwell Banker Danforth. Dave Danforth, Caldwell Banker Danforth. They have about 300 agents in 5 offices in the greater Seattle area from the Puget Sound area, which I've never been to. I understand Puget Sound's a beautiful part of the country, but I would like to go there, but I've never been. Looking forward to crossing that off on my list. It's on the bucket list for sure. This decision underscores our brokerage's unwavering commitment to agent autonomy. Oh, I like how they spin this. They're like, this. In other words, what you're hearing from Dave Danforth is that we are going to kick NAR to the curb, and we're going to use that to recruit agents. We're going to use that as an angle to recruit agents. And I've got to tell you, I've already been doing that for years, and it works. So the fact that somebody can join my agency and not have to pay the $700 or whatever it is to join NAR, let me tell you, it's a recruiting edge. I have several agents on my roster that joined. I hope it's not the only reason they joined, but probably one of the kind of seal the deal things is they didn't have to pay the $700 to the Realtors Association. They're like, Jack, I don't have to pay that. Nope, you don't. They're like, sign me up. And Dave Danforth is also recognizing that same thing. Our belief in allowing agents to make choices that best suit their needs and principles. So I would imagine that this is going to be the start of a wider trend. And, it might be kind of like the beginning of the end of NAR if they just don't have the revenue, ongoing revenue from agents. So like, if NAR membership tanks a lot, then that's going to be a problem for NAR. Also out, and I think this story here requires a full disclosure here. Real Estate News, which I quote on a semi-regular basis, is co-founded by the same guy that owns the real estate consultancy called T360. Stefan Swanapool. I hope I got that name right. But they are out with clips, snippets, so to speak, of the T360 Trends Report for 2024, which you have to buy otherwise, except for what you read here. They could have done a little bit of a better job disclosing that these two things. I know that's noted way down at the bottom, but this article here is basically an ad for the T360 Trends Report, which you have to buy. But we're just going to look at the headline here. The National Association of Realtors is at risk of becoming irrelevant or worse, according to the T360 Trends Report, which you have to buy. T360 industry consultants offer their take on how it must reshape itself. So here you got Department of Justice on the march. You got various agencies from across the country. Of course, that was including Redfin, and you've heard Anywhere say it, Anywhere, which is the corporate parent of all those Codwell Banker franchises. And now you have an individual corporate or franchise out in Seattle saying we're out of here. They're on the brink. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They have a lot of assets, and they're pledging to fight and actually appeal this court case. We'll see how it goes. If they were so insistent that they were going to win, why are they begging to not even go to trial next year for the Morrell case, right? They're begging not even to go trial for Morrell, which the conventional wisdom of that Morrell case was going to be heard in the springtime. Now it looks like it won't be until Q4 of next year, and the National Realtors Association said they didn't even want to do it then. The National Realtors wanted to push Morrell over to 2025. And you know, if you're ready to go and you fully confident in your arguments, that, you know, let's bring it on, right? Maybe the fact that they want to delay it forever shows that maybe they're not fully confident. By the way, this is not a topic I was thinking of bringing up again. It just kind of happened, this next topic. And so I've already had my fun with this, but I couldn't help but bringing it back. Ricky Carruth commented on my YouTube channel yesterday. Yeah, I wasn't going to bring this back up again, but he went over and he commented on my video that would kind of, how do I say this? That was mildly critical of the fact that he deleted a bunch of videos and canceled his interview with Mr. Ketchmark, the plaintiff's attorney in the Kansas City case, and without any explanation on his channel. If you go to Ricky Carruth's channel right now, there's no video explaining why the whole Ketchmark thing got canceled. You know, and all the 2 or 3 videos that mentioned it, or the one video that mentioned it, and then the live stream that mentioned it, they're all gone. But nonetheless, Ricky Carruth did comment on the channel, my channel. Thank you, Ricky, for watching. And all he said was, it got canceled. Yeah, we know it got canceled, Ricky. But why? Why, since you're speaking the truth about real estate, Ricky, why didn't you tell us why it got canceled? Right? Yeah. So, man, so I didn't want to bring that up, but I couldn't help it. It is a sign of how sometimes the mainstream media can be so far behind. We have this story out of CNBC. Nashville added nearly 100 residents per day in 2022. Here's why people are moving to Music City. By the way, I love Nashville. I've been there 2-3 times. Went to the IndyCar race in 2020. What a great show. This is a town that knows how to entertain. What a great town. If you have never been to Nashville, 2 thumbs up. You'll have a great time. And I don't even drink, and I still had a great time, right? Because known as a party town. Anyways, when you stop and think about that, as a real estate agent or broker, what happened in 2022 is not really relevant to how much you might list a price for today, or how much you might offer on a home today, because that was 2022. That's way in my rear view, right? So you've heard me say that I'm a big fan of this new website called Resi Club. And if you really want to know the data about what's happening much more recently, rather than kind of the mainstream spin out there, which can be good, but, sometimes it's dated, like that story there. You go to Resi Club, this video is not sponsored by Resi Club, although maybe it should be. And here's Lance Lambert, who I think is the co-founder of Resi Club. He is saying that Austin, Memphis, San Antonio, New Orleans, and Nashville almost are back to pre-pandemic levels. So if I read this chart right, Austin is 23% above pre-pandemic levels. Is that right? Memphis 12, San Antonio 5.7, New Orleans 4.2, and Nashville is the next one on the list, where they're just off pre-pandemic levels at 4.4. So they're almost back to pre-pandemic levels. You can kind of see the trend that they're moving in that direction. Just curiously, locally here in Boston, we're down at 46%. We are 46% in the metro region off of pandemic levels. And that sounds about right to me off the top of my head. We are way off inventory. By the way, that was all inventory We are way off on that inventory number since the pandemic. Just we're way off. So it was. I was just like struck the other day I was like, boom. Lance Lambert followed me on Twitter. Really? I mean, I couldn't believe it. So thank you, Lance Lambert. I, of course, followed you right back. And Resi Club is definitely one of my favorite new websites. I strongly recommend it, even if you're not interested in real estate, but you're interested in how you could, or even if you are, but I think there's a lot of lessons here. So I want you to go over and listen to this podcast sometime this week. And this is a story about how Resi Club came to be over at My First Million podcast. You pick it up, as he says here, at about the 27-minute mark. And it's really a blueprint about how to create a newsletter business or a content business and then promote it with video, promote it, and it just walks you right through the creator economy of today. So, I'm going to put this tweet back up here for you. I'm strongly recommending that you head over to My First Million podcast and listen to the interview with Anthony Pompolano. Is that how you say it? Forgive me, Anthony. Yeah, go over there. And this guy, Anthony Pompolano, who's, super wicked more famous and super wicked more successful than I am, walks you through exactly how you create like a newsletter content business, of which apparently he's done several times. So strongly recommending that podcast if that's anything at all that you're interested in. And you can actually apply some of those lessons, I think, to being a rank and file real estate agent, because there's a huge, and you maybe heard me say this before, there's a huge gap in local news right now, almost everywhere in the country. And if you as a local agent fill that gap of news in your city or town, and you don't need to cover, every, car crash and every fire, but you can do like the big overarching issues. If you cover that, you'll have a giant audience in your community. And of course, upon gaining their trust from time to time, you can then ask them for business. So I'm strongly recommending that podcast, My First Million with Anthony Pompolano. I hope I get that name right. All right, so let's talk about how Jack is wrong, at least for now. And mortgage rates. I'm happy to be wrong about this. The 30-year fixed is down to 7.09. Wow. Happy to be wrong, at least for now. Yeah, that is good news. And it's very possible, especially if you look at this chart. Can we flip this chart to, yeah. So here we are. This is the 1 year. Can we flip it to more shorter time frame? There we go here. Yeah, that looks better. When you look at this chart, you can see there has been a significant turnaround. All right. Jack was wrong. And, yeah, I hate to admit that. Remember that Happy Days episode with Fonzie, and he had to admit he was wrong. He couldn't even say the word wrong. I love that episode. My dating myself. So it has broken, the 10-year has broken the support level, which was, I believe, 4.34. And now we're down to 4.2-ish. And yeah, I think you can see this trend here a little bit better, even on this chart here. This is the 1 year. I mean, that's undeniable, right? It hit that peak October 18th and has been, this is a, October 18th. So that was 5-6 weeks ago. I mean, it's just, kind of went sideways for a week or two. So basically 3 weeks, maybe 4, where it's just been boom, all the way down. Jack was wrong, at least for now. We'll see if I continue to be wrong. Hopefully I will continue to be wrong. Just a quick note here. Ray Dalio has been out with an interview late last week. We are near the inflection point. Ray Dalio warns that America is now borrowing money just to pay the debt service. And he cautions that debt will accelerate just to maintain spending, which is what you've heard me say before. And the schedule that the U.S. Treasury has for borrowing in the next calendar year is staggering. And you cannot deny the fact that our macro trend of fewer foreign investors for U.S. debt, that has declined a lot. And we've had a number of troublesome Treasury auctions in the 30-year and the 7-year and in the 2-year. Oh, so, I mean, it's spanning all those different terms. So those types of things, if there's fewer buyers for our debt, that's going to drive up the yield, which would then drive up the 30-year mortgage. And the spread now, last time I checked, between the 10-year yield and the 30-year mortgage is about 285 basis points. And I think it peaked at about 310, 315 or something like that. So just call it 300. It's kind of the easier way to do it. So that is a driving factor on mortgage rates next year. We might have a slowdown. We might not have a slowdown, but we definitely are going to be borrowing a lot more money. If there's one thing that we can be sure, next year, the U.S. is going to be borrowing a ton of money, and fewer people want to lend that money to us. And that's going to drive up interest rates. Now, we may have a recession to counteract that, or we may not, but we will be borrowing a ton of money next year, and that will drive up interest rates. Yeah, we didn't need that story. We skipped that. This was an interesting story from Real Estate News. I don't want to, I just kind of want to kind of pick on them for a quick second. Despite economic volatility, most people can still pay their mortgages. Well, isn't that how it's supposed to be? Like, aren't most people supposed to be able to pay their mortgages? I'm just saying. I just thought that headline was a little misleading. What, by the way, is the kind of the natural delinquency rate? Right now, we're at a delinquency rate of 2.8%. Of course, at any point, there is going to be kind of like a default delinquency rate. I was thinking it was kind of like 2%. So I'm kind of curious if anyone thinks what that would be. According to this article, the delinquency rate during the Great Financial Crisis spiked above 10% back in the day. And for those of you who are homeowners back in the day and, you know, were adults, God, that sucked, right? 2008, 2009, 2010 was probably the worst year for me. And then I got my real estate license in the spring of 2011, and things started to get better, right? Things started to get better. So I don't know what the kind of the minimum delinquency rate. You would think, obviously, everyone's paying their mortgage, but that's probably statistically impossible. So 1 or 2%. If we're at 2.8%, that is still, I guess, not panic mode at that point. But unless it's, of course, you. Like they say, the recession is when your neighbor loses the job. The depression is when you do. All right. Redfin. Redfin settles class action case over wages. So is this story about Redfin and their business model? 2,700 Redfin agents are eligible for a compensation of $3 million payment. So here's another class action suit. Do I have my class action check here anyway? So some of you might remember I won a class action case against my lender, and they sent me a similar size settlement, $3 million. They sent me a check for $3.31. Where is that? My wife probably took and spent it. No, I haven't even cashed it. I just kept it as kind of like a joke. So out of that 2,700 agents, the agents on average, if you do the math, on average, that's about $1,100, but that doesn't account for the lawyers. So on average, Redfin agents are going to get $658.13, with the highest agent getting $5,000. And then the two people who are named as lead plaintiffs, they get $10,000 each out of a $3 million penalty. Let's see. why did they sue? Well, why did a case involving allegations of improper agents compensation that Bell worked for Redfin as an employee, which involved two different pay structures. Something about the labor violations, failure to pay overtime, failure to provide rest periods, and failure to reimburse business expenses. So those sound like, if it was you as the agent, those sound like, things that you'd want your employer to follow through with the letter of the contract, right? If you're doing your job, they should do theirs. It's kind of a black eye for Redfin and their business. Of course, they've been struggling with the overall low volume in the business. Mr. Kelman continues to say, well, it can't get much worse. I don't know. Maybe it can. What do we have for the economic calendar this week? Not a heck of a lot, except later in the week, on Wednesday, we have the ADP employment number. That's at 8:15 on Wednesday. I don't think we'll be live for that, given the fact that the ADP employment number has been problematic as of late. But the big number is on Friday at 8:30, and we're going to try to do our best to be live for that on Friday at 8:30, because that's the jobs number. First Friday in November, we have the jobs number, and we're going to try to be live for that when that comes out on Friday. We'll take a quick look at the market. We are 10-year is actually slightly up. Dow and all the futures are slightly down. Lastly, this is not a real estate story, but I was shocked to see Spotify, big story today. They are planning to lay off 17% of their employees. I'm a huge Spotify fan myself. They've already had 2 layoffs, I think, this year, much smaller layoffs. And so to see them now be trimming some of their irrational exuberance that happened, malinvestment that happened during the pandemic good times, Spotify has thrown the axe a little bit here, and 17% is a huge chunk of employees to go. Let's see if we have any comments. I think we do. Sharon says, thank you for recommending Resi Club. Well, it's my pleasure. It's a great website. Again, video not sponsored by Resi Club, although it should be. So until then, it's been a great show. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed. Well, I thought it was a great show. I had a good time doing the show. Until then, go make some money. Have a great day. Bye-bye.